Hello Earthlings, you're listening to the Environment and Science podcast, The Earth Show.
If I said the word clothes or fashion to you, instantly things will probably pop up into your head. Maybe it's your favourite top, those jeans you really want, that outfit that you still need to pick out for an event, or maybe you think of the runway, fashion weeks and celebrities that you see on the television. But how many of you think about the stages before your clothes get to you? How many of you think about what your clothes are made of, where they come from, and what impact this has on our environment? Because it's something that's not plastered on every wall you walk past, and so most of us probably don't give it a huge deal of thought. But actually, when it comes down to the facts, the fashion industry is responsible for 10% of the world's global emissions, 20% of wastewater, and 92 million tonnes of textile waste every year, which is the equivalent of a truckload going to landfill every second. And on top of this, it's obviously responsible for large amounts of pollution to waterways, and it's known to take advantage of many people and children in developing countries, making them work in poor conditions for very low pay. To put it lightly, the modern fashion industry is quite problematic, and it's easy for us all to get swept up in it too. But in recent years, there's been an increasing movement of people breaking the trend of disposable fast fashion and taking their own new and quirky routes. And so I am delighted to introduce our guest for today's show, Chloe. Chloe is a Manchester-based second-hand and slow fashion influencer with over 10,000 followers on her Instagram account, What Chloe Thrifts, where she documents her journey as a lover of slow fashion. Welcome to the show today, Chloe. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
How does it feel to be on air?
It feels weird. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. It's a bit surreal because I didn't think that this would be happening for nearly 4 years ago since I started my Instagram page. It's wild.
Well, it's great to have you here. I mean, I think by the end of the show, you'll definitely be of inspiration to a lot of people through what you do. And I'm certainly honoured that you came on.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And you're living up to your handle because you do have a very good outfit on today.
Thank you.
As you can probably expect by what we're about to talk about. But for a bit of chit-chat before we start, we were just talking, I asked Chloe about sending me a few songs before the show to play. And she sent me Calm by Taylor Swift. And you said in the break you're a massive Swiftie.
I am a huge Swiftie.
I've got to ask you then, are you going to the Eras tour?
I'm not. I tried to get tickets and failed miserably, but I am going to watch a tribute act at Stockport Plaza, so that will be my Eras tour.
That'll be fun anyway. I mean, who has the Eras tickets anyway? I have one friend who has three tickets, not for the same day, for 3 separate days.
Well, you need to introduce us.
Yeah, I know, right? We'll have a great time at the tribute act.
I will, of course.
What's your favourite Swift song?
So there's 2 that I really love. So on her album Speak Now, Dear John, about John Mayer, absolute classic. And on Folklore, which is my favourite album, is My Tears Ricochet. It's got a bit of a deep meaning.
Yeah.
People should look into it if you're not into Taylor Swift, and you might have a different look on it.
Different outlook. I think that's the thing. I mean, people are going to get confused now. This isn't a music show. But that is the thing with Taylor Swift. She literally has a song about everything. Like, you can always relate. You can always find something in one song, right?
Absolutely.
She just covers everything. But enough of the Taylor Swift fan club here. Let's talk about fashion and sustainable fashion. To start with, before we jump into slow fashion and all that kind of thing, why do you love fashion?
I think I've always loved fashion. I mean, I obviously went through that gawky tween phase where you don't brush your hair and you're not really bothered about what you look like in like your first and second year of secondary school.
Yeah.
But I think I've always had an influence on shopping secondhand through family members.
Yeah.
And I've always loved getting inspiration from like TV shows and movies, and I have always loved it, but I've only just now started putting it into practice over the last few years, which has been a bit of self-discovery, really.
It's really interesting, everyone's inspirations with fashion, because it comes from so many things in your life, like what you're surrounded by, who you grow up watching. There's so many influences, and it's like you said about, it's a journey for everyone, isn't it?
It is.
And also it's a journey that changes. People have changes of fashion through their lives. It is a really interesting thing how it kind of tells you a lot about a person in a way too, doesn't it?
Definitely.
But that's a little introduction to Chloe anyway. Massive Swiftie and also fashion lover. And we're going to be talking all about your world of what Chloe thrifts, your tips, what you love about slow fashion, secondhand clothes, all of that kind of thing in just a minute.
Here on The Earth Show.
Hello and welcome back to The Earth Show with me, Elysia. Today we're talking about sustainable fashion, and we are joined by Chloe of What Chloe Thrifts, who I introduced just before the break as a lover of fashion, a lover of sustainable and slow fashion, and also a massive Swiftie, as we also established. And I think the first thing I've got to ask you, for the benefit of our listeners who aren't familiar with like the term slow fashion, what actually is that talking about, Chloe?
So with slow fashion, sustainable fashion, you have to look at the contrast, which is fast fashion. So there are fashion brands that are putting out hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of different designs, items per week. It's a fast turnaround of production from making the garments in the factories to being out on the shop floors or on websites for digital businesses. So the opposite is slow fashion, where it's, I would say, mostly thrifting, maybe borrowing, renting, using what you've already got in your wardrobes, just that slow, bit like a slow burn of your clothes, and you're getting the most out of what you're wearing. If that makes sense.
It's
hard to explain.
It is hard to explain, but I completely know what you mean. It's like breaking that kind of first cycle.
Yeah, it's not always keeping up with current trends and, I have to buy that because this person's wearing it on Instagram, or I have to have a new outfit for every occasion. It's about re-wearing the clothes that you have and showing love to the clothes that you have.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning that there's lots of issues with the general fashion industry, and that's why it's a good thing in that way, because you're not turning over all those things, so it's not got all the negative things associated with it to the same extent.
Definitely.
So that's what slow fashion is. You know what, to be honest, when you were saying it before then, I almost thought, like, if you think of it as like life, where life is like really quick, and then life slow, it just sounds so much more, meditative and relaxing anyway, slow fashion.
It does, and it's just, it is a nice thing to get to grips with, because I think the way that the world is now, everything is so fast paced. It's like you've got to have the next big thing, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. But I think slow fashion is being content with the things that you do have, and meditating, like you did say, on things that you want to add to your wardrobe that are going to last a long time.
It isn't fast paced, and it is like a more relaxed thing. It's more of a thing where you are coming to, because with fast fashion, I guess you're trying to keep up with trends and stay in the flow, which some people like to do, obviously. But I guess slow fashion, you're almost having to find yourself a bit more, because you're having to form your own kind of style, because you're not following what's already set out by, I don't know, what's been on the runway a couple of years ago or whatever. So when did you mention before that you kind of grew up a bit with some slow fashion? When did you really get into it? Were you ever a fast fashion girly, or have you always been slow fashion?
So I started out, well, from being really young. My mum and my grandma would take me to car boots, and my grandma used to take me to charity shops. We used to call it gadding. She was like, let's go gadding, because she looked after me in school holidays, because my mum was a single mum, and she would like give me some pocket money, and we'd go around the charity shops and we'd find different things, whether it was toys or but I think my passion for slow fashion really started in 2020. So before that I was shopping at Primark, or I'd still go to the charity shops, but it wasn't mainly focused on secondhand fashion. And then lockdown hit, and I didn't fall into like a bit of depression, but I just felt like, I was furloughed from my job, and I was staying at home, and I was really fed up, like being in my pajamas, and so I started my Instagram page to help me get dressed every day. I actually stumbled across a girl's profile on Instagram, and she was doing the same thing, and she was tracking what she was wearing. So I was like, oh, that's given me a bit of inspiration. Like maybe I could do that, because I'd just started like a Depop account, and Vinted was only just getting big. I started that to help with my mental health, really, to help me get dressed every day.
That's such a lovely kind of project to have done, and that was a really good idea, because I mean COVID was really hard, and those lockdown periods were really hard for so many people, and lots of us did find ourselves taking up new hobbies and trying different things to keep ourselves motivated and to keep ourselves energized, because when you are at home all the time, and that's I guess a really nice way for you to discover your fashion. And like you say, you set up that account of styling an outfit every day. So it was fun, because when I started the account and someone else like would follow me that was a similar sort of vibe, and I got into this little community, and people were doing like daily outfit challenges where you would style different things. So like I ended up doing my own challenges. I did like a Fleetwood Mac challenge, and I did a Friends challenge, and people jumped on board, and it was just a load of fun. That's really cool. So did you start out on Instagram, was it?
I did,
you started doing this?
Yeah.
And to start with, were you just using what you had in your wardrobe, or when you did these challenges, were you trying to acquire new pieces? What was
so I wasn't trying to keep up with the challenges by buying new stuff. Like I was furloughed, so I was getting paid from my job for basically doing nothing. And I thought, I can't go out and spend this money, I can't go out and do things, what can I do? So I thought, maybe I'll go onto Depop and see if there's something that I like, because I had dabbled in it before, and then I started accumulating like little bits and bobs, and a lot of the people that were joining in on the challenges were using things that were already in their wardrobe. So it was a case of, this is your outfit inspiration that you take in, and you look at what you've already got instead of buying something new to keep up with it. And it made you think about what you've actually got in your wardrobe.
And I guess appreciate certain pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
More, and probably also, because I think a lot of us are guilty, and I'm guilty of this too. I have lots of things in my wardrobe, but not everything gets worn. And that probably made you look at those things that weren't necessarily being worn, because you were looking to match up to whatever the challenge was, or just to try something different. So did you find through that time your style evolved as you did these challenges, because you were getting to try these different things?
Yes.
Or did it kind of reaffirm where you already were with your fashion?
Yeah, so when I look back to my early posts on my Instagram, I think, oh my goodness, like that is not me at all. Like I would never wear that now. But I think that's what is really important, is that a lot of the pieces that I was styling were things that I already had in my wardrobe, or things that I had bought secondhand. And with that experimenting, I was able to discover what is truly me. And it is a journey for everyone. Like I'm still going through it now. More now that I have found my style. I feel like I know what looks good on me, what I feel good in. It's not about what looks good to everyone else, it's about what you feel good in.
It's how it makes you feel, what you are, definitely. So when you when you were in lockdown and you just kind of got into your fashion a lot because it was, for you, something that you picked up to help you stay energized and motivated, to encourage you to get dressed every morning during what was a really difficult time for lots of people during COVID. When COVID finished and obviously you went back to work and life kind of became a bit more normal again, did you then continue to do these daily style challenges, or did you continue to post every day? Did your routine change, or what happened then? How did it evolve?
So my routine definitely changed, but in a positive way. So people weren't really doing outfit challenges anymore because, you know, you had to keep up with going back to your normal life, which was quite overwhelming for a lot of people. I think a lot of people felt like quite burnt out by it. But I would then make even more of an effort to go into the office, and I would think more about, what can I wear today that's going to make me feel good, because it is hard going back into working in a routine and having to travel to and from work. Like, it was really draining. So I thought, if I plan my outfit the night before with things that I had in my wardrobe, not, you know, I do have to wear business wear to work, but I was using things that I'd accumulated over the lockdowns and maybe like more casual pieces, but styling them in a more business way. So I think it did change, but obviously then the charity shops reopened, and I was like, I just want to go shopping. So I think my over consuming habit came into play more, which wasn't great. But at the same time, I don't regret it, because again, it's helped my style to evolve.
Yeah, which is an important part of any fashion journey, isn't it? You have to try things, and you have to do things to kind of evolve and see what you like and see what you feel good in, which at the end of the day is the most important thing with clothes. It's what you like to wear and what makes you feel good or confident, or whatever you're going for. So that you've talked about charity shop. You mentioned the charity shop before. We mentioned Depop and Vinted before. For people who are listening to you now, maybe they're thinking of changing their style a little. What are their options for where can you go to find this slow fashion, to find secondhand things?
So a lot of people, I think, charity shops, there's a bit of a stigma around it, that secondhand clothes, like, they're dirty and blah blah. But I think charity shopping is the best way to get started, because you can go into a charity shop and you can search every single rail, and I guarantee you will find something that you love. Like, a top tip for me is to search every rail. Like, look, if you're a woman, look in the men's section. Sometimes even look in the kids section, because they do label things wrong. But I think, look at what you've got in your wardrobe and try things on section by section. So go through your tops, your pants, your dresses. If you put something on and you think, is that me? Is it bringing me joy? If it doesn't, then it's time to go, because you should only feel good in the clothes that you wear, because ultimately it does stimulate that positivity in your brain, that you feel good because you're wearing an outfit that you love and it makes you feel good. So it will just bring you more positivity.
And that kind of way you said, if it doesn't bring you joy, don't keep it anymore. That does actually lead on to the question of, because a lot of, I mean, when we talk about fast fashion, it's quite disposable, really. We get it, we get rid of it when the next stuff comes in, as the next season or whatever. And that's probably part of the problem when it just gets dumped, because if you don't dispose of it in a certain way, it will just go to landfill. It's the end of the day. It can't be of use to anyone else. In terms of slow and sustainable fashion, what would you do when you say you've finished with a piece of clothing to kind of, you know, help it continue its journey, you know, to someone else who does really like it perhaps, or need it?
Well, this is the thing. I think the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure, is so true. And the first thing that people think of is, I'll just throw this away. But a lot of charity shops are overwhelmed with donations. Is sometimes, if you're just checking your local area, that sometimes charities will put signs out saying this is what we're looking for, like whether it's men's clothing or bric-a-brac, or so you can think, oh, I can take that, what I've got there. But I think to make yourself a bit of extra cash to spend on things that you're going to want to buy, that you're going to want to wear, use selling sites like Vinted, or you could try eBay, Depop. There's even swapping websites. There is one company that I've used a few times called Big Sister Swap, and you sort of buy a swap package, you send them your clothes, you fill in a questionnaire, and they tailor what you've said in your questionnaire to what you want them to send back. So it is, there's so many different options. You could even host like a little swap with your friends and your family at your house, or there's just so many different options. It's just about knowing where to look.
So that website sounded great. It reminds me of something. So similarly to you said you used to go with your grandma to charity shop, or to car boot sales and the likes. Growing up, for me, I always did the same. So I would, go with my grandma a lot too, who absolutely loves clothes. So we always, and we still do, go to lots of charity shops whenever I'm with her, and also with my mum as well. And I always remember my mum saying, like, when I was younger, she used to take my clothes, like children's baby clothes. When you're a baby, you grow out of clothes really quickly, and she would swap them. And she has mentioned to me before how that shop that was just a local thing closed down, obviously. I don't know, it wasn't as popular anymore, but she used that loads, and that's really cool to hear of that website, which I wasn't even aware of. What was it called again?
It's called that's a different one. It's called Big Sister Swap. But there is a shop in Manchester in Athlete's Palace called Beg, Steal and Borrow. So you can take your clothes there. They will either give you store credit or they can give you cash for your clothes. But they're looking for more like alternative funky pieces, but there's just so many different alternatives. Like I've been to loads of swap events before, even kilo sales as well. So you sort of fill a bag for however much it is, £10-15. That's a really good way to sort of rejuvenate your wardrobe, and sometimes they do take donations as well. And you just listed so many things there, and that just shows you how many options are out there. And when we're talking about getting rid of our clothes and via all these ways, whether you are someone who just wants to donate them, or you do want to make a bit of money back from them, so you can spend on more clothes or whatever you want to spend on, there are loads of options. It's just about being aware of them, because for a lot of people, they might think it's a lot of hassle to sort out old clothes, and they might just think either like, oh, my child's growing out of them, or I don't like these anymore, I'm just going to put them in a bin bag and either dump them outside a charity shop that maybe can't deal with them. Oh no, don't do that. Don't ever do that.
And that is not the way to go.
I think my top tip for anyone who's looking to get rid of clothes by selling them, like I use Vinted personally, just upload a few things a day. Say 5 things a day. Do that as your starting point. Then as things start to sell and you start to see that little balance go up of money that from the clothes that you sold, it gives you the push to want to upload more. So then maybe you could do 10 items a day if you've got that many clothes to upload, and it gives you a bit of a push. So just start small. Don't overface yourself like, oh, look at this huge pile of clothes in my room. Just do it a little bit at a time,
really
and when you do see your balance start coming in from money of sales that you've made, it does give you the push to do it.
Is it easy to sell things on? I've never personally sold clothes on Vinted. I've always donated them and checked, obviously, before I donate them, that where they're needed, because you also, another option is you do get clothes banks, which do give clothes to whatever the cause is. It might be children that need clothes, maybe at home, or maybe it's in a different country, and things like that are other options too, that often you see those kind of banks at things like the supermarket or your local recycling centre. Maybe it's always worth checking in advance where it's going, but now I've completely lost my train of thought. But for someone like me, I've never actually tried to sell clothes on Vinted. If you didn't have a lot of clothes to sell at first, say you said pace yourself is an important thing, not overface it, but say you were someone that just like you've been through your clothes, you've got 2 tops, and you're like, I don't want these tops anymore, but I think someone else actually would. They're in a good condition. They can definitely be worn again. Is it easy? Would it be easy for you to just put 2 things on, or is it harder if you're not kind of persistently putting things on?
Yeah, so I think the main thing that I look for when I am uploading to Vinted or buying things from Vinted is I look at the reviews and make sure that it's not someone that's I'm gonna try and buy the item and they're not gonna send it, or it's someone who's got a lot of bad reviews, like I won't buy from them. But I think it's worth giving it a go just to see, because then for future whether if you have something you can sort of upload it, and but it's just a really easy process. And I think, like I said, a lot of charity shops are so overwhelmed with donations. It is worth trying to circulate that fashion yourself, and if that fails, like if you don't end up selling it, it's not a loss. You can always do, like you said, donate to clothes banks, which goes a long way for people who really need it.
Definitely. There's lots of options, and I think that what you're saying there really is just try it. Like, try Vinted and things, because until you try, you don't know, and you may well have a bit of success on Vinted, especially if you've got a few pieces to sell. And especially if you're someone who does revamp your wardrobe fairly regularly or something, you probably will have a fair bit you can put on there.
100%.
Because I think some people, that's their living, isn't it? They're full-time sellers. Like, they buy clothes really cheap in bulk and then they resell them. You can make a good bit of money from it if you're wanting another income form, that is. But in terms of if you're starting out, you mentioned before you think that the easiest place to start looking for clothes is in a charity shop, but there's a bit of stigma surrounding charity shops. Now, this is something that I never really realised there was a stigma surrounding it till quite recently, because we've both mentioned that we've grown up and we've been using charity shops, and it's not really been a thing. It's been like, go to the charity shop, see what you find, if you like anything. There's never been like a stigma, certainly in my environment growing up, or yours. But recently I was out with some friends. We were just like out for coffee, and afterwards we went to a few shops, and one of my friends was looking for something, and she couldn't really find it, and I said, why don't we just look in the charity shops, because they often have stuff like this that she was looking for. And she was like, I'm never really sure about charity shops, because they're a bit dirty, someone's worn them before. And I was kind of thinking, for me, I'm like, well, you just wash the clothes. So not actually, you just wash them when you get home. And also, if you're in like a high street shop, people will have tried the clothes on too, so it's not like nobody's ever worn them either. But it's something you don't realise. There is a stigma, and it's about breaking that stigma if you want to break that cycle of fast fashion.
Definitely. Well, with what your friend said, I've heard that a lot, like charity shops are smelly, they're dirty, and I can assure you that before the clothes go out onto the shop floor, they are steamed, so any bad bacteria that's been worn from the previous person, it has been steamed to the best that it can look. But the thing that I always tell people is, if you go away on holiday and you stay in a hotel, you're using towels and sleeping in bedding that nasty stuff has probably got on before, and anyone could have slept in it. It's probably been slept in thousands of times before they even consider getting rid of the towels or the bedding. So I think, if you're going to buy something from a charity shop that's maybe been worn by 2-3 people before you, or if it's vintage, it's been in circulation a long time, like, that's what washing machines are for. It's going to get rid of all the bad bacteria, and I think that is something that needs to be broken. Like you said, the stigma, it needs to go, because to me, it's just crazy. Like, you would sleep in bed in elsewhere while you go on holiday, so why would you not wear someone else's clothes if they've been washed?
That is such a good point, and I've never thought of doing that comparison myself. But you're right, it's just what people are used to, and it's a different area, so people obviously have that different opinion. But that's why it's cool to have you here today, because you put together outfits, you are a fashion influencer, and you are showing people that actually you can shop in these places and you get really good stuff, and you can put together really nice things that in a lot of ways can be better from what you're getting in these high street shops where some of the clothes are really naff and they just fall apart straight away. And they are maybe only like trendy for a year, or I don't know. We all know trends that didn't last long that everyone
100%.
adopted. Especially when you're at school. I remember there was a coat trend when I was at school. These green kind of shaggy coats, and everyone got these green shaggy coats. And for about a year, everyone had them, and I've never seen them since.
No, not even in the charity shop.
No, because nobody obviously liked them that much to keep them going.
No.
But we all see these trends that are very passive. They can just come and go like that. So I think we'll have a quick break quickly because we've done a lot of chatting there.
Okay.
But after the break, I thought maybe we could get some of your tips for, obviously we've said where you can look for clothes, but what we should maybe look for if we're starting off trying to make our wardrobe a bit less fast fashion-y. Hello and welcome back to the Earth Show with me, Elysia, joined today by Chloe of What Chloe Thrifts. We've had a really great conversation so far about, well, to be honest, quite a lot to do with slow fashion compared to fast fashion and how Chloe got into it and got interested in it herself. And we talked about the stigma a bit surrounding things like slow fashion and why Chloe has completely told us why it's not actually valid with her analogy compared to bed sheets in a hotel, which is actually a really good point. So yeah, it gives you something to think about if you weren't so sure. But we will talk about in a minute, because I did mention before about maybe what staples, where you should start looking in a charity shop. But first, in the break, you brought up a couple of things that you wanted to bring up in the rest of this show. And one of the things was the people you have met through doing what you've done, through having your Instagram account.
Yeah, so I have met the most amazing girls in the Instagram slow fashion, sustainable fashion community. Everyone's really positive and upbuilding, and people give you so much inspiration as well, like following these girls. They're just incredible. So one that I've met, Thrifty Finny, Jade. So we've actually worked together for the last 2 years. Because we met through Instagram. She came to work with me. She's just left, which I'm really sad about. But she does amazing. Like, she's very positive vibes. And she lives with another girl called Lucy, who's Lucy Jane Fashion. And she does styling with a stoma. And she's actually set up a Facebook group called Charity Shop Boppers. And she hosts these little charity shop days all around like Greater Manchester. I know that people have also met up sort of down south as well. But Lucy has arranged a couple of these. I've only actually been to one so far. But she arranges these groups, and then you can all meet up, go for a little charity shop day. And then maybe go for a coffee after. And it's just really nice to meet like-minded people. So if that's something, you wanting to get into slow fashion, you don't know where to start, join the Facebook group, because there's always something going on. And one account that's really informative is Venetia Lamana. So she does a lot of content based around like work conditions of fast fashion brands. or the sustainability side of things, there's a lot of facts and figures. If you're really wanting to get into like the nitty gritty of how bad the fast fashion industry is, she's really, really informative.
Yeah, I've come across her videos myself, and they do make your jaw drop a little.
Yeah.
But she is a really informative person, and she has loads of stats, and it's like those high street shops that you don't necessarily realise the extent of what they're doing, and you might even just pass it off by being like, oh, they don't realise, like it's just the culture, but actually they should know better. They're big companies, and she exposes that, which is a really important thing to do, because companies can get away with doing quite a lot if nobody stops them. But what you've said there about the supportive groups, and it just seems like such a lovely supportive community you're in of slow fashion people, and I feel like that kind of sums up slow fashion as a whole. Like it's a really welcoming community, right? And if you're someone who's not got involved before, as in you normally just shop at high street things, which is valid, because people grow up with that, they haven't tried other things, and maybe they have got their trends that they currently like, and that's completely valid. But for people who are listening and thinking, oh, I might actually want to try what Chloe's doing and what a lot of people are doing, just know that you'll definitely be welcomed with open arms.
Just come on, we'll make you feel welcome.
and we're not closing up the show quite yet, but I will say, obviously follow Chloe on What Chloe Thrifts, because she's got lovely content. It's so cheery, your account. It's so cheery. You can't look through without smiling. And so I guess if it made you feel better doing it, and I think that rubs off on other people too when you watch it, so it's had a double action. But now for people that, like we've said, are thinking of changing their ways, you also mentioned before you wanted to talk a little bit more about why the fast fashion industry is so bad.
I think it's just really sad, because we live on this beautiful planet, and the fast fashion industry is contributing to a lot of the destruction of it. I mean, like I said before, Venetia Lamanna, she has a lot of informative content. There are enough clothes on the planet to clothe the next 6 generations of people.
That's ridiculous.
And when you think about that, with how small the Earth is in contrast to, bigger things in the universe, that is really scary. And the amount of water that it takes to make a pair of jeans, it's like 1,800 gallons of water just to make one pair of jeans. And then you think about people that are strapped for water, they don't have access to drinking water, and that much is going towards making your jeans. And I think the one thing that hits home with me, it's not so much about the environment, it's about the poor working conditions for these garment workers in underprivileged countries. And there was a big factory collapse. I think it was the 10-year anniversary. It's called Rana Plaza, I think that's how you say it. Over 1,000 people lost their lives, and it's so tragic to think that these people are put in danger for a garment that's not even going to last, a couple of years. It's just going to end up in landfill, and they're not paid correctly. There is actually a documentary on Channel 4 about the fast fashion brand Shein. I would urge anyone to go and watch that, because it will really open your eyes to how bad things actually are. I think a lot of the thing with, the poor working condition and the poor pay and that terrible disaster that you've just mentioned, which are all awful, is I think people can feel quite distant from it, because in your nice high street shop, it's all clean and all the clothes are there, and like I kind of mentioned at the very, very beginning, we don't often think about where things have come from. We don't second check. It feels like, because it's happening across the world, people just don't think about it, because you're so dissociated from it, because you don't see the impact in front of you. If you had to walk into one of these sweatshops yourself and pick up the clothes, I think a lot of people would probably have second thoughts, because they would walk in and they'd be like,
oh, right,
these people are suffering.
This is not right.
Yeah.
But when you're like on the other side of the world and, you know, the clothes are quite cheap and you quite like the look of them and you know, you just like want something quick, you don't think about it, and it's an important conversation for us to have, and that's why Venetia Lamana is if I've said her name right,
she's
we're both
so
not
good.
sure. That's why someone like her is really, really good for exposing these things, and why slow fashion has a really important role in combating these and changing the industry, because by not supporting these fast fashion brands, you know, that there's less of an industry for them and they're going to be making less clothes. So, with that being said, for the final few minutes of the show, for our listeners today who have listened to what we've chatted about and are thinking maybe they have done some secondhand shopping before, maybe they haven't, but they're thinking to themselves, I want to give this a bit more of a go. I want to give this more of a proper start. Where should they start? Should they start by looking at what they have in their own wardrobe? Should they just go into a charity shop and try everything on? What do you think is the best approach?
Well, I would go into a charity shop and just try everything on, but that's because I know my style. Yes. I know what I like. So, first of all, you need to evaluate what you've already got in your wardrobe. So go through your wardrobe, section by section, try on all your tops. If anything isn't really feeling like it's you anymore, or if you're holding on to that top that you've had since you were 21 and it doesn't fit you anymore and it's never going to fit you again, just let it go. Let it go to someone who is going to get the wear out of it. So start with your own wardrobe, and then with what you've got left, figure out what you feel best in, because then you can sort of find out the silhouettes that you like. So whether it's like a midi dress or a maxi dress or skinny jeans. People are saying now that skinny jeans are out. Like, if you like wearing skinny jeans, you wear those skinny jeans. If you've got them in your wardrobe, don't just let that trend that they're not in anymore dictate what you should and shouldn't be wearing. And I think if you have an idea of what you are looking for from that's not in your wardrobe anymore, you can then go into a charity shop, or you can look on Vinted and you know what you're looking for. So before I go charity shopping, like, I am an avid spender. I have tried to rein it in because I do overconsume a lot, and I try my best. But I get a list together of things that I am looking for. So say if I wanted a pair of cowboy boots, I'd write down on my I have a thrift list on my phone. This is what I want. So cowboy boots, silver jewellery, a white shirt, like, because then you know what you're looking for, so you're not going to be overfaced when you do walk into a charity shop and there's so many different options. Like I said before, try every rail, because you do not know what might have been mislabelled. You don't know if something in the men's section might fit you oversized, and you'll absolutely love it. Like, I love shopping for men's blazers. They just you like the fit. I just like how that they look, and they are, you know, mostly good quality. I think a lot of people, if they were to walk into, say, like a New Look or a River Island, you'd try on what you're going to buy before you buy it to make sure that it fits you right. And it should be the same in charity shops. Just because it's come from another person doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it on to make sure that it fits and feels right. You know, you can always wash it when you go home. So always try things on before you buy them. I think another thing that's really important when you are thrifting is if you're trying not to overconsume like me, which I'm so guilty of. I'm not perfect. There's like a 5 ways rule. So if you see a top that you like, think of 5 ways that you can style it with things that are already in your wardrobe. Like, oh, that'll go good with those jeans that I've got. Oh, I could layer it over a dress in the colder months. Or, you know, I don't know if there's any other ways. See, I can't even think of 5 ways myself. But yeah, the 5 ways rule is really good, so that you know that you're going to buy something and it is going to be a staple in your wardrobe. Like, I have a lot of thrift regret, can't even say it, with a lot of things that I've seen and then I've gone back for them and they've not been there. It's like the worst feeling ever. So I think if you see something and you're thinking, I love it, I'm not going to wear it with 5 things, but I love it, just buy it. Just buy it. In a charity shop, you've spent a couple of quid or maybe a little bit more in a higher end area, but the money that you've spent has gone to a charity.
Yeah.
It's gone to a good cause, and you've not contributed to the things that are destroying the planet. Yeah. So if you see something and you think, oh, I love that, but I don't know if I could pull it off, just buy it. You'll find a way. You'll work it out.
And I was going to say, if not, like we talked about before, if you bought it and then 2 months down the line, then you change your mind. Well, look, we've just said you can resell it yourself. Yeah. You can put it back on Vinted.
Someone else will love it.
And someone else will love it too. And I think like what you've said there makes so much sense. One, about having a list, because I guess with charity shops, they can be a bit more disorganised, as in, like you said, things can get mislabelled and all sorts, and for some of us it can be quite overwhelming if you're used to a shop where it's very organised and very ordered, like a typical high street shop, and having a list is a really good thing, and going through your own clothes first makes so much sense, and I think loads of us forget to do it, and even people who are looking at fast fashion. I feel that's the problem with over-consuming, isn't it? Like, we don't realise what we have, and then we buy duplicates, and then we've got some things still missing, so we go out for more, and then we buy more stuff we don't need, and that's really, really easy to do.
Oh, it's so easy. I do it all the time. Forget what I've got, and then I'm like, I'll find it months down the line, I'll be like, oh, I forgot that, and I've also bought a top that's so similar, and I think, well, I don't need 2, so we'll get rid of 1.
But that's the thing, it's just about keeping the cycle going. Yeah. I guess that's what slow fashion's about. And like, your trends will change. Just because you're doing slow fashion doesn't mean when you can't ever buy new clothes again. Like, you have to just stick with your clothes till they're worn out, and you have to mend them and you know, keep them going forever.
Well, that's the thing, because you just said, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't ever buy new things. Like, I occasionally buy something new. Like, there's a lot of slow fashion brands out there as well that use like dead stock fabrics. Like, my favourite slow fashion brand is called Hissy Fit, and they use dead stock fabrics, and those clothes are going to stay with me. I bought a dress a couple of years ago from Marks and Spencer's new because I'd sought after it, and I loved it, and I'll wear it for years to come. You know, just because something is new, it can still be slow fashion to you. You can still wear it in different ways, layer it up in winter, wear it down, dress down with trainers, wear it up with heels, you know. Slow fashion is subjective. It can be things that you love carrying on. I can't really explain it.
No, I completely understand, because I've got pieces in my wardrobe that I've had for, you know, since I stopped growing, really. I don't know how many years ago that is now, but you know, and or even like it also comes under things like hand-me-downs. Like, I've got loads of my nan's hand-me-downs, which people I feel like have a thing like, your nan's clothes, but actually I'm just saying I quite like a lot of my nan's clothes.
I think half of my wardrobe is my grandma's clothes. She is where my fashion inspiration comes from.
So there we are. The inspiration comes from all walks of our life, and slow fashion presents itself in so many different ways. But unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. I feel like we could have talked for ages longer. And I feel like Chloe has so many great tips, and you have so much knowledge in the area. And it's clearly something that you love and are very passionate about. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it so much.
I hope everyone listening has enjoyed listening to what Chloe has to say. Remember, you can find her on Instagram, what Chloe Thrifts, and that's got like an underscore between the what.
It does.
It's like what _ Chloe _ Thrifts. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you can find her there, stay up to date, join her journey, as maybe you decide to embrace a bit of slow fashion more yourself. Maybe you already embrace it a lot and you want some more tips and some more encouragement and advice, or maybe you're starting out. Maybe you've heard this today and you're like, actually, you know what, I do care about these poor working conditions or maybe the environment, and I do want to relook at the way I approach fashion. And maybe this is a great time now. There's no time like the present to start on a new journey, and you may want to follow Chloe for some advice and encouragement during the process of that.
Yeah, just message me and I'll take you charity shopping.
There you have it, the offer's there for you all.
Thank you again to Chloe, our wonderful guest on today's show, and thank you all so much for listening to today's episode of The Earth Show. Your support really does mean so much, and I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review, a rating, a comment if you enjoyed listening today. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on here and follow at @theearth_show for more content on Instagram as well. And if you'd like to get in touch, I'd love to hear from you on info.theearthshow@gmail.com. But in the meantime, all that's left to say is don't forget to share this podcast with your friends if you've enjoyed it today. And from me, a massive thank you for listening and have a wonderful week. Speak to you soon.